Good morning and welcome to The Street on BNN Bloomberg. I'm Roger Peterson. Coming up on the show today, Jeff Hall, Senior Financial Advisor at Manulife Wealth, is our guest host. And it's a busy Monday morning in the BNN newsroom, and well, he'll help break it all down for us. There is a lot going on. Okay, some of the stories we're tracking for you here in the BNN Bloomberg newsroom. Venezuela's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, is calling on the United States to cooperate with her government following the capture of Nicolas Maduro. In a statement, Rodriguez invited Washington to work together on a development agenda within international law. U.S. President Donald Trump says Venezuela will need rebuilding and warned Rodriguez of consequences if she fails to cooperate. Nicolas Maduro, the former president, is scheduled to appear in a New York court later today. And of course, with all this, we are watching the price of oil as the market reacts to U.S. action in Venezuela. Despite the upheaval over the weekend, the OPEC producer accounts for a small fraction of global supply, and the market is already grappling with a swelling glut. While the U.S. says it plans to increase production in Venezuela, experts say any meaningful change could take years to take effect. Former federal minister Chrystia Freeland has been appointed as an economic advisor by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Freeland was named by Prime Minister Mark Carney as Canada's special representative for the reconstruction of Ukraine. Her appointment comes as Carney travels to Paris to meet with other allies of Ukraine in a bid to end Russia's nearly 4-year war on the country. And now our top line story. After a series of explosions in Venezuela, President Donald Trump announced that the capture of Nicolas Maduro and his wife had happened, and they now will face trial in New York on narco-terrorism charges. They are there now, and Bloomberg's Miles Miller is live outside the Southern District of New York courtroom where the pair make their court appearance at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. Miles, thank you for joining us. Some dramatic images we saw earlier of that helicopter waiting to whisk them from a Brooklyn jail to the court. Quite a morning so far.
Yeah, that's right. He was brought from Bearcat to helicopter, back in the Bearcat, and he's in the building this morning. That armored vehicle making its way into 500 Pearl Street about 5 to 10 minutes ago. He will go before a judge at 12 this afternoon to answer to charges that prosecutors say have been 25 years in the making. It starts back in 2000 when Maduro was a member of Venezuela's National Assembly. During those years, prosecutors allege that he was moving loads of cocaine under the protection of Venezuelan law enforcement. If that's not enough, when he became foreign minister in 2006 and served until 2013, they say that he provided diplomatic passports to drug traffickers and facilitated diplomatic cover for planes that money launderers used to move drug proceeds from Mexico into Venezuela. Then there's that specific period between 2004 and 2015 when prosecutors say Maduro and his wife worked together to traffic cocaine, much of it previously seized by Venezuela's own drug enforcement agency. They used military escorts to protect those loads, and during that time, prosecutors allege they maintain their own state-sponsored gangs. The scale is enormous. By 2020, the State Department estimated that 200 to 250 tons of cocaine were moving through Venezuela every year. He'll have to answer to those charges at 12 this afternoon, and then there will be a decision on what to do with him. It's likely the judge in this case, Alvin Hallerstein, will remand him to custody. He'll go back to the Metropolitan Detention Center, which is a far cry from Miraflores Palace, where he lived until about 72 hours ago.
And have we heard if he is held for the duration of this trial, which I imagine could go for years, would he be held in a Brooklyn jail, or would he have a different, more comfortable place because he's a president, now former president right now, or at least of Venezuela? Would he be treated differently?
Yeah, everybody gets the same standard of justice and the same standard of pre-trial detention. He'll likely be held in that special housing unit at Metropolitan Detention Center, which means 23 hours in the cell, 1 hour of recreation, 3 meals a day. But this is a place that one federal judge called barbaric. We know that the former president of Honduras, who was recently pardoned by President Trump, was also held in that facility, also while awaiting those narcotics charges that he was eventually convicted of. These are not great accommodations, but it is very much what he will be dealing with as this case makes its way. If it goes to trial, that trial wouldn't start till 2027.
Okay, Miles, thank you for that update. We have to wrap it up there. That's Bloomberg's Miles Miller. For more on this, let's bring in our guest co-host, Jeff Hall, Senior Financial Advisor at Manulife Wealth, to talk about this. Quite the start. Well, first of all, welcome, Jeff. Thanks for joining us as always.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. We're good with that. But boy, what a start to the year.
Crazy. This was quite a situation with Operation Absolute Resolve. And on a military side, what a success. Over 150 aircraft involved, including Chinook helicopters. I've been on those. They fit about 50 troops per helicopter. This was a massive operation. They only have 2 injuries, no death, and no equipment lost. That's batting 1,000. Very rare.
I mean, that must show some incredible intelligence.
Yeah, my understanding is the CIA started working on this back in August, and they actually started training troops in September. So one thing the U.S. military is very good at is they will drill. It's like boxing matches. I always say they're never won and lost in the ring. They're won and lost in the gym leading up to the ring. And the military spends a lot of time training. And as usual, especially with the Navy SEALs involved, they always do these operations at night because there's an old saying, Navy SEALs own the night. When your competition can't see, it's like playing hockey and one team's blindfolded. It's not even a
Was
fair
it not
fight.
Delta that was involved in this?
Delta was the main tip of the spear for this. Actually, it was across the whole sphere of everything.
Oh, really? Okay.
Even including Space Force. Remember when Trump first started, everyone kind of mocked it. Space is now high ground. Even in the medieval times, high ground was key. So they're called Guardians, the guys that run and the ladies that run Space Force. They were heavily involved with satellite imagery, movement on everything. It was truly a massive operation. And again, to have 2 injuries, that's stellar.
Okay, now big picture now it's kind of, we're into almost a little bit of a calm, I guess you could say. I think everybody's figuring out what's happening next, what's unfolding next. What are countries like China and Russia? They're looking at this, and what do you think they're thinking right now, or what are they planning?
I think, first of all, they're pretty upset because China got about 60 to 80% of the oil coming out of Venezuela because it's a different kind of oil than most have available. It's actually kind of a heavy sour crude. So China was a big one. Russia was a partner. Actually, the U.S. military took down all the Russian designed Venezuelan air defenses just to get the troops in, as an example. So Russia's not happy. China's not happy. Iran is not happy, but so is Cuba. Cuba gets almost 100% of their oil for fuel, for generators, et cetera, comes out of Venezuela. That tap's turned off right now, and Cuba's already strained at every angle. So it's going to be a very interesting thing to see this kind of cohort on the other side of the globe. But Trump's definitely done a major flex here and securing kind of that Western Hemisphere dominance by kicking out a lot of these foreign actors basically out of a country and taking that chess piece off the table for now.
Somebody was calling it the Don Roe Doctrine, right?
Yeah.
And he adapted the Monroe Doctrine and advanced it, I guess you could say. But Venezuela, though, the reality, I think, was 1%, less than 1% of daily production.
Yeah.
But it's what they possess as well.
Yeah, it's actually number 1 in the world for known oil reserves, ahead of Canada, Russia, the United States, Saudi Arabia. It is number 1. But right now, it's way down the list, number 21, as far as actual producers of oil. And it just showcases the decay of the infrastructure that's been there for decades and how it hasn't been kept up. Because remember, they chased out all the American companies and didn't know how to run a lot of stuff. Actually, the only American company still involved in Venezuela is actually Chevron. Yeah. People don't realize there's still an American company there, but all the other ones have either fled because people are being kidnapped and other things.
In court with the Venezuelans, right? Over
exactly, yeah.
Now, I saw a number, $100 billion to get those back up to snuff, to even just to function. Are there companies that are going to be willing to take a chance on that? Oil companies especially. It's a weird one because as you help Venezuela start pumping more oil, it may bring down and put more supply in the world. So it's going to bring down the price of oil. So you're almost like maybe hurting footprints in other parts of the world with your oil. So it's going to be a fine balance they have to do when they're trying to help and refurbish, refine, and help rebuild infrastructure. But are you shooting yourself in your own foot in the oil industry? So it's going to be interesting. I imagine there's a lot of oil execs figuring out their next move with this because they've got to balance Trump and balance money.
Yeah, it's volatile. And even with regime change, the whole game plan is thrown out the window. All the rule book is thrown out. There's an old saying that regime change is never easy. It's, history is a warning label that most people never read.
All right. We'll leave it on that note there. We've got lots more to talk about this when we come back. Jeff Hall, Senior Financial Advisor at Manulife Wealth. Up next, we'll take a look at the markets before the bell. All right, let's see how things are shaping up on the markets. We'll start with U.S. futures and the developments in Venezuela tentatively being seen as a positive for the markets right now. They were all up at one point. Now you can see the Dow, a bit of a wash, but you can see the Nasdaq 0.73% it's up, and the S&P 500 up 0.3%. We'll see how things unfold when the markets open, though, in about a little over an hour. And the major Asian markets, look at the day that the Nikkei had. It was up nearly 3%, a strong start to the new year, first trading day of the new year. Apparent risk appetite is positive for AI, semiconductor optimism driving all those fresh highs. But you saw the Hang Seng off slightly, and the CSI 300 up by nearly 2% to start off. And heading to Europe, similar situation. The FTSE was flirting with 10,000 again. It's dropped back a little bit, but still up almost a quarter point today. CAC 40 up slightly, all near record territory. The German DAX also up by 0.6 today. And the TSX bounced back on Friday, finished the day strong, up by 0.54% after shaking off that sluggish end of 2025. Energy financial stocks, the main drivers there. And taking a look at some of the winners and losers, look at that. Energy Fuels up more than 15%. Denison Mines up nearly 14%. Going the other way, Wesdome Gold down by 4.5%. And G Mining Venture up by 8%. And gold, it is up more than 2%. Not surprised. People looking at it as a safe haven with everything that's unfolding in Venezuela. It's up at above 4,400 right now. Silver bouncing back again. After that pullback last week, it's up 5.25%. The gold-silver ratio is in the high 50s as silver proves more tempting right now. And also copper up 3.43%, surge over demand there. And oil, this is, of course, what everybody's talking about. This is what WCS did on Friday. We'll see what happens today, of course. It was up a quarter point roughly on Friday at 43.93. As all this concern about Venezuela starts to come in, but there's not a huge amount because I'm more concerned about a possible glut. And you can see oil right now is actually up slightly 0.89% at 57.83, to try and push through that 58 barrier. It's not had a good little run lately for sure. And a couple of the oil companies, though, look at Chevron right now, which has functioning facilities down in Venezuela. It is up more than 6%. And ExxonMobil is up, which was involved down there. It's involved in litigation with Venezuela, but right now it is trading up 3%. All right, we are continuing our coverage of our top story to dive deeper on the impact of the Venezuela situation on Canada. Let's bring in our guest co-host, Jeff Hall, of course, talk more about this, Senior Financial Advisor at Manulife Wealth. Jeff, Canada, short term, we're kind of okay. But long term, we have to start really looking, don't we?
Yeah, that's tough because Canada, Russia, and Venezuela are the kind of trilogy there that have the heavy crude oil. It's hard to extract. It's hard to refine into end products. But really, that was kind of also our main bargaining chip with the Trump administration. Yep. And now that card's been taken away. And like you and I have been talking about earlier, it's interesting because the Texas oil refineries are closer to Venezuela, which I find than they are all the way back up to Alberta. So actually, this is a better solution for the U.S.
And I guess a ship can get there faster, unload faster than the oil traveling by pipeline down.
Yeah, absolutely. Just straight across the Gulf of America.
What do you see Canada doing short term right now? With this?
Well, first we'll start with panic.
Yeah.
And then after panic, they have to really strategically think out what they're going to do with the type of oil that we have, which tends to be heavy oil, because it does different products around the world. Obviously, Russia takes care of a lot of certain areas on the other part of the world, but Venezuela is our biggest competitor for that heavy crude. And that's a real problem and an answer that Canada's got to get to, because again, that was our big bargaining chip with Canada.
And with the U.S.,
Yeah, we were back of the bus. Now we're off the bus.
How did we do against Venezuela in like the 90s when Venezuela was, and 70s through the 90s when Venezuela was pumping oil?
Actually, Venezuela was doing better because Canada didn't have a lot of the high-tech technologies of the oil sands and things like that. Venezuela used to be an oasis. It was one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest country in South America. And then in the last couple of decades, it's just gone completely downhill. Almost a third of their population has fled the country in the last couple of decades, many to actually America and surrounding countries. It's very tough on the people there, but it's going to be very interesting to see if this can be a phoenix from the fire emerging, if it's handled correctly. And I think Trump kind of fumbled the ball a bit when he said they're going to kind of run the country. The guys behind him specifically, meaning Marco Rubio and others, he should have said, we're going to help run the country. He left out that one word. I think everyone's taking it off the deep end because of that.
I think you'll see him back off on that a little bit and realize that. I don't think he wants to get into that. Now, with Canada, what do we look west? Do we look east to where we try and move this oil now? Because if we might not be looking south necessarily?
Yeah, I think we got to look both directions completely, west and east. And it's a scenario where Canada has potential, but even in other technologies, and even with Venezuela, so we might lose a bit on oil, but there are other opportunities for the complete rebuild of infrastructure in Venezuela. Canada does have some companies here, whether it's steel and others, that might benefit. But then again, it has to do with proximity. So Mexico has CEMEX and these massive cement companies to help with a lot of the infrastructure there. There's a lot of U.S. steel. Again, Canada's just further away. Everything we have to do.
But we have the technology, though, right? Can we export that and export the expertise?
Absolutely. And we have certain technologies also, like even Warren Buffett, who just retired, he has a technology, one of the oil companies he has, that helps pipelines, as an example. If you lubricate the inside, you can move oil about 10% faster through oil pipelines. So there's all these periphery technologies, some of which Canada pioneers, that can actually help with that. And obviously, Greg Abel, that took over the helm of Berkshire Hathaway with Warren's retirement, is a Canadian, and his background is energy.
So we'll have to see what happens with that. But there's still a lot of what if before any. I mean, Canada should be planning. We should have been planning anyways for any of this stuff. Hopefully we were, but we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah, we'd hope there'd be a plan A, B, C, and D. I fear there was barely a plan A, and that's my fear.
And that's what we may get caught with our pants down with. Okay, we're going to leave it on that note there. But up next, we'll be back with Jeff Hall to see why proxy investing is on his radar. Time to see what's on the radar for our guest co-host, Jeff Hall, Senior Financial Advisor at Manulife Wealth. And Jeff, you've got an interest in proxy investing. That's showing up to start off the 2026 radar alert.
Absolutely. People don't realize that some of those, there's proxies out there, just like the Dow Jones was started back in the end of the 1800s with 12 companies. It was supposed to represent sectors of the economy. Now it's 30 that tries to represent the U.S. economy. Proxies have been used throughout history for different things, but there's some really great ones because a lot of people get very excited about things like IPOs coming up. Obviously, the big one this calendar year, Elon Musk has announced that SpaceX will become a public company. Everyone's already applauding that. Can't wait to get their hands on it. Almost nobody will get their hands on it. So they're all going to wait for the IPO to come out. But there's lessons from history people have to be careful of. Good old Facebook, now Meta, when it went public, to huge applause and a big rise. And back in May when it went public in 2012, going into August, the same year as 3 months later, it had fallen 50%. So people got to be careful with IPOs because there's a lot of hype and marketing and attention that dissipates shortly thereafter. But there are some really great ones where sometimes you can get some of these IPOs for what I call free.
All right, free is good. I just want to ask one quick question before you get into that. With IPOs, what's the kind of success rate where you buy it and it actually goes up, or you buy it and it goes down?
Yeah, I think as a generality, the best time to own the IPO is as a founder of a company or an employer, somebody that had it long before it hit the public markets, because that's, again, peak hype. And that's when people are trying to sell off the company. They want to get the maximum price, just like selling a home. Someone wants to sell their home at the maximum price. They got to make it look pretty and stage it. It's the same thing for an IPO. So people need to be very careful. It's a bit of the roll of the dice. Sometimes I suggest people wait till after the IPO comes out and all the excitement, settle down, and it's off the radar. And then all of a sudden, then they can pick it up at a better valuation once it settles in. That tends to be the best time. And also, there's usually lockups for the founders and originators of the company. And usually they can't dump their stock or sell any for 3 months or 6 months. They have like a blackout period almost where they can't sell anything for a certain lockup period. And then all of a sudden it just floods the market again, bringing it down potentially again.
Okay, let's talk about free now then.
Free is best. We're going to get
It
free
is.
money. So here's some secret ways to get
Wait,
SpaceX.
is there ever free money? What's the catch?
Well, the catch is, the first example I'll give you is you have to buy Alphabet. Alphabet is the parent and 100% owner of Google, YouTube, Waymo, the Android operating system. Most people don't know is they were the very first investor in Elon Musk's SpaceX and got 7% of the company.
Oh, okay.
In 2021, they issued more stock and they didn't want to be diluted, Alphabet, so they put more money in to keep their 7%. So anybody that happens to own Alphabet or Google stock, you're actually getting 7% of SpaceX for free, and at the valuation of roughly $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion. It's about $100 billion. They'll just come in to Alphabet in one day when the IPO comes out. So that's a great way as one example of a few.
All right, and what other ones? What other options? Are there different ways to do it as well?
Yeah, there's a company called EchoStar that has legacy satellites and systems out there that just did a deal with SpaceX. They've signed 2 deals together. Still has to pass regulatory approval, but part of their payment, other than just cash, is they're getting 2% of SpaceX as an example, which doesn't sound like a lot. If you have a small company getting a piece of a massive company, that 2% can become very large. It can really move the needle. But one of the other desirous IPOs that will be coming out some point in the future, probably not in 2026, is OpenAI, which is the parent and creator of ChatGPT. That's the one everyone's desirous to get their hands on. But again, that's going to cost a fortune if someone buys it in the public market. But again, you can get it for free if you own Microsoft stock. Microsoft owns 27% of OpenAI. So you get that as a bonus if you happen to own Microsoft.
And other companies with OpenAI, maybe smaller ones that people might not think about, or might be more affordable. All right, more affordable.
That's a little bit tricky. Like even recently, SoftBank out of Japan, actually, which is private though, one of the biggest private equity companies in the world, bought a piece of OpenAI. But a lot of these companies, whether it's SpaceX or OpenAI, are always trying to do big deals with massive conglomerates. So they can kind of keep it tight to a small select few until one day when they want to go out at peak excitement on an IPO. But again, investors need to be really careful with IPOs. Make good decisions, make sure it's right for them, and don't get caught up in FOMO, fear of missing out.
It sounds like if you want to get in right at the start, get in with money that you don't need. And if you want to play it safer, give it a few months to unwind, because most of them kind of settle down, don't they?
Yeah, and again, why not just own Alphabet, which is Google, which is the most profitable company in the world? And then you can own Microsoft, which is also one of the biggest companies in the world. Microsoft is the 3rd largest. Alphabet, which is Google, is the 4th largest company in the world. You can own that, and if for any reason SpaceX doesn't turn out or OpenAI doesn't turn out, you still have these amazing, solid, incredible monopoly-style businesses that you own for your future.
Yeah. The gains aren't as big, but the hit isn't as big either if it goes south, right? Yeah. I just lost my complete train of thought on that. I'm still thinking Venezuela, so I went off on that. I think we're going to wrap it up there because my brain just shut down for a second, but we're going to be back in just a bit. Jeff Hall, Senior Financial Advisor at Manulife Wealth, is joining us today. And coming up next, Bloomberg Intelligence's Rob Barnett will be here to break down the impact of Maduro's capture on oil. And of course, our phone lines will open soon for our first call segment. Call us at 1-855-326-6266. You can send us an email at firstcall@bellmedia.ca. Venezuela's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, is calling on the United States to cooperate with her government following the capture of Nicolas Maduro. In a statement, Rodriguez invited Washington to work together on a development agenda within international law. U.S. President Donald Trump says Venezuela will need rebuilding and warned Rodriguez of consequences if she fails to cooperate. Maduro is scheduled to appear in a New York court later today. U.S. oil stocks are trading higher in pre-markets after U.S. President Donald Trump pledged to revive Venezuela's energy sector following the capture of Maduro. You can see Exxon up about 2.7, Chevron 6.5 or 6.3, and ConocoPhillips up by more than 6 right now. Chevron and Mobil and ConocoPhillips are all surging on those expectations. Trump said U.S. companies will invest billions to rebuild the country's crumbling infrastructure. Former federal minister Chrystia Freeland has been appointed as an economic advisor by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Freeland was named by Prime Minister Mark Carney as Canada's special representative for the reconstruction of Ukraine. Her appointment comes as Carney travels to Paris to meet with other allies of Ukraine in a bid to end Russia's nearly 4-year invasion of the country. And looking at U.S. futures, you can see the Dow, a bit of a wash right now, essentially, but the NASDAQ well into the positive, up 0.66%. S&P 500 also up by about a quarter point. For a deeper look now at how oil is moving, we are joined by Rob Barnett. He is the energy and commodity researcher at Bloomberg Intelligence. Rob, thanks very much for joining us.
Pleasure to join you. Exciting day in oil markets, I'm sure.
Oh, it's an interesting day. I mean, we know Venezuela has oil, but what is the timeline for seeing that oil production increase?
Yeah, I think you have to think about this in terms of years and decades. So we put out a note this morning, making the case that, there's some long-term risks to think about when you're thinking about the Canadian oil patch. But I think most of these things will take, billions of dollars investments and years to materialize. And, you've seen oil pretty flat this morning, despite all of the news. And I think that the possibility of bringing lots of heavy crude back to the market from Venezuela is very real, but don't expect it overnight.
And do you think the oil companies are going to have the stomach for this? I mean, two of them already got burned 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Are they ready to go back in?
Yeah, I think there'll be some interest, but I do think that it's not going to be just a panacea. This is a kind of thing where, sure, there might be some increased interest. It's very hard to ignore the largest oil reserves on the planet that Venezuela has. So I think that it's there probably will be some companies who would be willing to take that risk to enter the market and bring those resources. But I do think that it's not a slam dunk. It's not automatic. It's not overnight. So I think probably all parties are going to proceed pretty cautiously. And, you got to keep in mind the near-term picture for the oil market is that we have excess supply. So probably most companies are sort of in a mindset where they're, keeping their capital budgets pretty tight here at the moment, given that we've got excess capacity, at least here in 2026.
Okay, and you mentioned the impact on Canada. Short term, probably not too much, but they should start planning about something potentially happening there.
Yeah, I think this could reshape a little bit of the North America energy landscape. So, as anyone in the Canadian oil patch knows, the relatively captive to the U.S. market because of the integration with pipelines and refineries there in the U.S. If you theoretically get more Venezuelan barrels on the market at some point in the future, that's a net negative for the Canadian oil producers. It potentially widens the discount for WCS relative to WTI. It probably puts a lot of pressure on Canadian policymakers and the companies in the oil patch to think about additional pipeline capacity that avoids the U.S. at some point.
And with that oil pipelines, would we see them go east as well, along with west?
I think the politics of going east is probably more challenging. Not that the West is easy, but you certainly have a longer path there, and that's a lot of negotiation to find a way to market if you take the eastward path. So let's see how it evolves. My expectation would be that you're more likely to see more thinking about additional options beyond the Trans Mountain pipeline, that sort of thing.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Rob, thanks very much for joining us. We appreciate it. Rob Barnett is energy and commodity research at Bloomberg Intelligence. Coming up next, we're looking at mega trends for 2026. And our phone lines are open for first call. Jeff Hall is taking your questions on North American large caps. Call us at 1-855-326-6266 or email firstcall@bellmedia.ca. Well, if you thought 2025 was interesting, hold on to your hat. 2026 is already shaping up to be very interesting. We're back now with our guest co-host, Jeff Hull, Senior Financial Advisor at Manulife Wealth. And Jeff, already it's been interesting. I don't know if we had Venezuela on the bingo card for 2026, but you're looking at some of the mega trends for 2026. And what are some of the ones that are going to shape this next year?
Well, probably the biggest influencer will be Donald Trump. Big surprise, same as last year. Again, not just his politics, which can be very acidic, but you got to watch his policies. And you got to remember, too, the most important thing for Trump, and we can rely on, is his ego. He wants to go down as one of the best presidents of all time. So he needs to win the midterm elections coming up in November for the House of Representatives. Republicans currently, as you know, control the White House, the Senate, and the House.
But it's been
the
House is pressure right now.
Exactly. So the House could flip Democrat, which historically that's usually what happens in the midterms. It flips. But if Trump wants to keep the House with the Republicans, he's going to have people feeling a lot better about inflation, the stock market, business, lower taxes, but also with some extra walking around money in their jeans so they could feel a little wealthier, so they would want to vote back in a lot of the Republicans. Otherwise, Trump's going to spend the last 2 years of his presidency impeach, all the way along the way. And the Democrats will likely zip up the purse strings that they have control over the U.S. government for.
So what do you see him doing with policy-wise, and what kind of an impact you see that having on, well, everywhere else, essentially, but Canada especially?
Yeah, I think actually even just going back to traditional politics, and he proved this, and even on BNN I talked about this when he first got elected, is for the first 6 to 9 months of his presidency, he was trying to enact 6 years worth of change. He was going to break and bruise relationships. Even when he did the 74 tariffs around the world, it's like a hockey guy dropping the mitts on the ice to fight the whole other bench at the same time. It's like, is he in that much of a rush?
He's a big guy.
Exactly. But he had to be, because he had to get that out of the way. All the bitter medicine, this is what all politicians do. Dole out the bitter medicine early in your election and when you win. And as you get and draw closer to the next election, start to be the good guy. Start to hand out candy to everyone. Not be so bad. Again, more walking around money in someone's jeans makes people feel a lot better about re-electing that government as an example.
All right, AI.
Love AI. Can't get enough of it.
So you're bullish on it, I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
It does seem like this will be the year that we might see a lot of fruition when it comes to AI.
Companies
really taking advantage.
Yeah, I think it's going to be exponentially accelerated. I've been an early investor in NVIDIA for over a dozen years. I love NVIDIA as a company, but also the whole AI framework and space is tremendous. There's going to be a lot of efficiencies that are created for companies, industry, governments, but there's going to be a lot of dislocation and displacement for a lot of employees that may have their jobs terminated by this new AI technology. So that's one of the negatives of AI. But overall, for science, medicine, health, physics, space, all the way around, AI is only a good thing that way.
Now, I mean, traditionally, when there's been disruption and there is always a fear that jobs are going to be lost and never replaced. Usually more jobs are created than were destroyed. But for AI, a lot of people think this isn't the case because we may destroy a whole lot of jobs.
Well, we can always oil robots, right? So that's a
job for you.
But the
code, right?
Yeah, exactly. But the reality, actually, even AI can now do the coding, which is you just need the human for the initial inspiration. But you have to remember, there were no such thing as an auto mechanic before automobiles. There was no such thing as certain types of engineers until that was needed for certain things, certain technologies, as an example. So throughout history, whenever there's been a dislocation, disruption, innovation has come in. I always say the Stone Age didn't end because they ran out of stones. It's because there was new innovation and new technology that comes in. So I think AI is a great one. But another one actually aligned with that is the robot revolution coming in. And not just the robots we know of that do assembly lines, the Canadarm on the space.
No, the ones that dance and things like that.
Oh, it's creepy how they dance better than I do. And I don't dance very well, but it's tremendous. But the humanoid ones are really taking hold. They're not just Teslas, but you got General Dynamics and all these other ones, and also for military. You know, even this military situation in Venezuela, this mission that went on that was flawless. Imagine if a lot of it could be done by humanoid type of robots. Where you don't have to have that. A lot of the F-35 fighter jets used actually drones, AI drones beside them.
Yeah, they sync up with it, right? And they fly as a
almost like a trio, but there's only one pilot. So it's amazing technology, what AI can do, robotics can do, and even autonomous cars for the future as well.
Okay, so it's all glorious, but there are also some things to watch for.
Yeah, there's some negative things out there as well. I think one of the biggest problems investors have, number one, is their own emotion bouncing between fear and greed and fear and greed. People have to have a plan and work the plan. People don't plan to fail. They just fail to plan. So they have to kind of figure out and have a kind of a torture-proof or storm-proof portfolio. I always say predicting storms doesn't matter, but building portfolios like ARCs is. You don't have to predict the storms, you got to endure the storms. So people need to be ready and know what they actually own. But one of the biggest dangers I see, and I do a lot of work with the NHL, And I find that when I take on a new client, a lot of them may have private equity or private credit, which are these kind of funds that lock you in almost like a prison for 10 to even as long as 15 years.
And I'm sure they seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah, because they'll point to something inside the portfolio, go, look, SpaceX.
Yeah.
And people go, oh, I want SpaceX. But don't say, oh, the rest of it's all turds inside that portfolio. So it's difficult for investors. But the biggest problem I see now is starting to be reminiscent of the 2008 Great Recession, is around gold, silver, and certain commodities where all these private equity and private credit funds out there own paper promises that somewhere down the line you own gold bullion or silver bullion. So I think investors have to be cautious and know what they own. And if they are going to go down that route of commodities or buying gold or silver, if you're not going to own the actual direct metal where you can actually hold it, then buy a fund or something where you know that it's audited and they actually control 100% in the vault of what they claim to have. Because there's this whole parade of these paper promises. Many can't back the amount of gold and silver. There's too much paper out in the world for the amount of gold and silver that's ever been mined. So that's a danger point people need to watch out for.
Okay, we're going to leave it there, but still ahead, we'll take a look at some of the notable analyst calls and recommendations at moving the markets, including ASML. Okay, let's take a look at some of the notable analyst calls and recommendations. And first up, ASML shares are rallying as much as 4.5% to a record high after Bernstein upgraded its ratings to outperform from market perform, saying the AI-driven memory chip supercycle will benefit the chip equipment firm. Analysts led by David Dye said that while many believe that ASML's growth will primarily be driven by logic chip makers, the firm thinks the upside from DRAM is significantly underestimated, adding that 2026 and 2027 will likely be big years for EUV due to the wave of memory chip production capacity planned, covering both general DRAM and high bandwidth memory chips. ASML was named as brokers' top pick with the price target raised from 1,300 euros from 800 euros. It's worth noting that European chip stocks are among the top gainers on Monday, including ASMI, as we were saying, up about 3.5%, Infineon up 2.4%. Let's bring Jeff back in, talk a little bit about this. You like ASML, don't you?
Yeah, I own ASML, just for the record. Great company. It's out of the Netherlands. It is one of the two biggest companies on earth. It's one of the most important companies hiding in the shadows of AI. Its competitor will be Lam Research out of the US. And what Lam and ASML do is they make the equipment so that the chip makers, mainly Taiwan Semiconductors, makes 80% of the world's chips, can make the chips for companies like AMD and NVIDIA and Intel and others. So if you trace everything back to the seed where it starts, it's from the equipment makers that have that equipment. And this is very precise equipment that is so delicate and so exact that only those companies are two of the main ones that can do it. And the lithography equipment in that ASML has is like a technology that no one else can match. And the Chinese aren't even trying to replicate it. They're just trying to buy the equipment. And that's one of the little areas that they have as an advantage because Trump has blocked a lot of things going to China. So Lam Research isn't supposed to sell the most sensitive equipment to China, but ASML is not part of the States. It's
so
part
they
of
can
the
do what they want.
So it can. So it almost took Lam Research off the world's table for some areas that now ASML could fill that void. But it's a great company. It's very well run. And it's just been quietly in the shadows, cranking out these amazing machines so that mainly Taiwan Semi can make the world's chips to advance the human race.
And can it meet demand, though? Does it have the capacity to meet demand?
That's
when it's that intricate.
Yeah. That's the tricky part. 'Cause it's not just manufacturing the equipment. To move it to its end country and location is so sensitive and careful. So they can't even meet demand now. So imagine the ramp up that's happening with AI. Even Elon Musk has stated that if NVIDIA would give him all the chips that they ever produced, he would buy them all. But obviously NVIDIA spreads it around. But even NVIDIA can't make enough Blackwell chips fast enough on equipment from companies like ASML and Lam Research as an example. It's amazing.
And could that be a potential headwind then for 2020 if AI takes off, where it looks like it might be heading in that direction? If it does, the headwind, but we can't produce enough chips. We can't produce enough equipment to make the chips.
Yeah, we even had that all the way back in the beginning of COVID when, cars, you had to wait a year to get your car because it didn't have all the chips available for that. So there's always been these shortages along the way, but the industry's pretty good at trying to adapt and rev things up. But the reality is there's only 7 days a week, 24 hours in a day to make that happen. So that's one of the difficulties that companies like ASML and Lam have, because it's not just them, all the aluminum and silver and all the equipment and materials needed to ship to a location, to design design and craft these amazing, intricate machines. Most of them are a little bit smaller than, say, a city bus, as an example, but very, very intricate. And like I said, very difficult to move to another location.
Well, yeah, smaller than a city bus. Not exactly an easy thing to move, but it is movable. But when you've got the delicate equipment in there, how long have they been doing this for? How long have they been around for?
Oh, they've been around for decades. And it's amazing, like some of these companies, sometimes they evolve out of other areas and they just found their way into this unique pocket that nobody else was really doing. And then some of the best engineers in the world work for ASML. And we're able to get patents and create these new innovations that nobody else had. Only Lam is one of the competitors is coming close to what they have. So it's a tremendous company that way. And it's very impressive. Even all the way down from the CEO, the CFO, and all the way up and down the engineering chains. Just talented people, very committed to innovating to the next level.
Okay, as my Dutch friend used to say, if it ain't Dutch, it ain't much. When we come back, Jeff Hall takes your questions on First Call. Okay, time for First Call, and our first caller is Sven from Halliburton. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you. My question is, with the AI sort of hogging the headlines, one of the areas that doesn't seem to be getting much discussion these days is battery technology. With Samsung announcing some new battery technology, including silver and other elements, I'm wondering what opportunities that might open up generally in that area.
Great question. Thanks, Sven. So one of the big areas you have in relation to Samsung specifically is they have a brand new battery technology specific for electric vehicles. If what they say is true, it's rather amazing. They may be actually launching it this week in Las Vegas at the Consumer Electronics Show for some more technology showcasing. But their EV battery charges in 9 minutes, and it looks like it could be almost double the range of a Tesla battery. If that's true, that's quite a game changer and takes care of a lot of that range anxiety people have in buying electric vehicles, as an example. But AI as a whole, the biggest problem AI has that's actually one of the choke points for the future is powering AI. All these data centers are thirsty for electricity, and the US power grid, as an example, is already very strained at all times, at least 90 to 98% at all times. So coming up with new power generation is important, and a lot of these off-site battery storage facilities that will have these battery storages next to these data centers in case power goes down, they got some kind of backup other than ones run by fuel is actually very, very important. So that's one area, but Samsung's got a lockup on that. Really interesting technology for the future, but a lot of silver is involved with those batteries. So watching the price of silver could also be important to the success or failure of that new technology.
And with that, I mean, people talk a lot about nuclear, but it's just not. It can be part of the process, but it's 10 years away. A lot of these plants, right? If they want to build one of those modular ones to run a data center, and so batteries could be a great alternative.
Yeah, it's great, especially for even small towns and things, but those small modular reactors you alluded to, they're small modular nuclear reactors are a definite part of the future. They're great technology. Yeah. Canada's trying to build one right now, but the biggest problem is permitting, building, all the loopholes you have to get through.
It's a decade, right, almost?
It can be almost a decade from engineering to shovels in the ground to a completed pull the switch and off it goes. It's a difficult thing, but that's one of the areas I see as a choke point and pain point for AI for the future is that lack of electricity availability as these AI centers are thirsty and draw more and more power at all times.
Okay, we're going to get to an email now from Peter. What are your thoughts on the Mag 7 for 2026, Meta in particular, and how do you see this year unfolding for the first 4 quarters, or for the 4 quarters? A tough first half, will it be? Very Shakespearean.
Yeah, one of the reasons I like the Mag 7 as a generality is great technology companies. All of them are dominant in their fields. These are the biggest companies on earth ever created by a human. Amazing companies, the largest piggy banks in the world as far as money off to the side, and they're doing great services for the public in general, but there's some that are better than others. I say all the Mag 7 aren't equal, but there are those that are more equal than others. Yeah. Obviously, every year you tend to have one superstar. In more recent times, that's been NVIDIA. Last year was actually Alphabet, which is Google, with their new improvement in Gemini and other things they've done to really hone the company down. They were one of the best for 2025. But every year, there tends to be one that's in the penalty box of the Mag 7. 3 years ago, it was Alphabet, which is Google, when they brought out Gemini 1, their AI, that was creating pictures that were so not true. And it looked lumpy and bumpy and wasn't ready for release. So they took their turn in the penalty box. Obviously, they've done better. This last year, it was Meta. The stock's literally been flat almost for the last year. So that's a company that has been investing almost more than anybody else in AI. Actually, NVIDIA's two biggest customers for their chipsets are actually Meta and Microsoft, as an example. So Meta's pedal to the metal for investing in AI, but they have to monetize that, and that's really important. But there's one thing Zuckerberg can do very well. It's eventually monetize things. They did that with Instagram and all these other technologies. We'll see where he lays that out, but right now Meta's in the penalty box, but could have a good year possibly ahead.
Okay, we're going to get one more in here. Email from Mike. Good morning. Can I get Jeff's professional opinion on placing new money into Intact Financial, or does he have a better option? Thank you.
Yeah, Intact is an interesting one. It's a good company. It's here in Canada. It does insurance. It's not one that I own. However, it could be one for the right person that's looking at. As a company, it's 17 PE, dividends about 1.87%. If someone's looking for that kind of a company, it's, like I said, it's a decent company. It's not one that gets me excited, but it's a company that's at least running their business fairly well overall. But if it's right for the right person, they like the business, then it might be one here for a Canadian.
Okay, so something to think about as we head into the new year. We got like a little minute, little free form. But we'll go back to quickly back to Venezuela. What do you see for the next little while?
Chaos. There's going to be days of excitement, days of pain in relation to trying to bring Venezuela into this new light. But again, you remember, they just cut the head of the snake off. The whole snake's still there. They have over 2,000 generals involved with their military, all being paid off.
More than the U.S., right?
They all own state companies and things like that for payoff. So you can't just, you got to cut out all the rot, and that's not something easy. And like I said earlier today, Trump shouldn't have said that they're going to run Venezuela. He should have said they're going to help run Venezuela, and that was a mistake in words that has a processional effect across the board.
All right, we'll see what happens with that. Jeff, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. That was Jeff Hall from Manulife, and Lindsay Biscay is up next with the Open, and the markets will open a little over 30 minutes from now.